Good morning, everyone. The Conservatives have a new leader, and we're going to go through it. I'm probably going to spoil it before I get to the official announcement. Okay, it was Aaron O'Toole won. Andrew Scheer loosens up and tells people not to believe the narrative of the mainstream media, to look into independent news sources, and we're going to look at that. And we're going to look at how the race happened yesterday. They ended up announcing at 12:30. They were supposed to announce at 5:30, or the show was supposed to start at 5:30, and then that didn't happen, and delay after delay after delay after machines eating the ballots after delay, right? So very, very interesting. Here's Andrew Scheer finally loosening up enough to kind of make a joke, and I'd heard that he was funny and sharp, right? Like if somebody sets up for a good joke, he's the one who can make the joke. And well, he name checks the post millennial in this little speech we're going to watch, and he says, this Toronto Star reporter says, partisan endorsements clearly okay with the post-millennial. That's Alex Boutier, and he's a national politics reporter with the Toronto Star. And then Andrew Scheer responds, so weird, eh? And he's got a Toronto Star, Liberals are the best choice for Canada, right? Partisan endorsements, right? So I think that's kind of funny. So here's Andrew Scheer talking about how not to take the mainstream media's narrative as gospel. I think it's an interesting time to start embracing the independent media, right when he's no longer the leader of the Conservative Party, and he stays well away from Rebel. He doesn't mention the Rebel. They're independent media. They're accredited, right? Judge ordered, accredited, right? You're accredited, guys. So I think that this hesitation, yesterday I was talking about how the Liberals use pretty much everything against you, or the liberal media, whatever. So if he endorsed the Rebel, that wouldn't be great for him or for the brand, I think, because the Liberals, that would be the headline. But here he's saying, read independent media. Read it. Here we go. Make up your own mind. That's what he's saying.
Think. Challenge the mainstream media. Don't take their narrative as fact. Check out smart, independent, objective organizations that are growing all the time, like the Post-Millennial or True North. There are other places to get information. Let's stop being the silent majority. Don't be afraid to challenge leftist professors or public figures. Millions of Canadians share our conservative values. They just don't all know it yet.
Okay, and what happens when you challenge a leftist professor? Well, you probably get a bad grade. And if you challenge a leftist thinker on Facebook or publicly, or even privately, if you send an email and challenge them, what happens to you? Well, you're met with the modern day mob, right? The modern day Twitter mob, the modern day Facebook mob with their proverbial pitchforks and torches, right? They're ready to get you. And what are they going to get you on? They're going to take screenshots of that horrible thing you said and send it to your boss, right? And try and get you fired. So this is the modern version of that. And it's interesting that Andrew Scheer doesn't recognize or doesn't mention cancel culture in this 10-second clip. I didn't see the whole speech. I apologize. But, I'm glad that somebody's encouraging free thinking. I'm glad that somebody's saying, please go make up your own mind. Don't just take what they say as fact, because sometimes it's not. Here's Dawn Miller, and she says, this is the diverse panel that CBC Rosie assembled to discuss the Conservative leadership race. White, female, and liberal. Where's Amanda Alvaro? Where is she? Was the criteria. I think this is interesting. Is this reflective of of who you think will be following this race closely? Is this reflective of Canada and the people who are voting in this race? Is this reflective of the wider Canada and the people who make up our country? Why is it acceptable for an all-female panel to look at and regardless of their skin color, why is it acceptable? Is CBC that anti-male? They can't have a couple of men on there to talk about politics, right? It's very interesting. And I'm not saying don't have women. Sure, have women, but why is it all women? Why is it all white women, right? Like this seems to fly in the face of, if it was all white men, somebody would call that out. Somebody would say, oh, you can't have that. And is the opposite completely okay? Is this the epitome of diversity because there are no white men? Is that okay? Is that ticking the diversity box? Is that the problem? Are white men the problem? Who knows? It seems more and more so. But more to my point, is this an acceptable reflection of the people who will be voting in this? And is this an acceptable reflection for talking heads to be giving their opinion? And their opinion is as valid as the next person, right? But should it only be their opinion that people are subject to? I don't think so. Clearly, this is why I do this. And I think that nobody's going to call them out on this other than, people on Twitter and stuff. I think that they think that they're doing just fine. I think that they believe that they are towing the line in this new equitable an enlightened and tolerant or intolerant of hate society, right? Tolerant and intolerant of hate. I don't know if they're the same thing. It's, you know, it's just an excuse to be hateful under another banner and pretending that you're virtuous when you're not. Okay, here, yesterday evening, I was trying to not waste the time, but I was paying attention to what was going on and seeing that the machines were reading the ballots and that lawyers were being called in. We'll get there in a second, and all sorts of stuff. So here's somebody speculating on how the races need to go in order for different people to win. So for Lewis to win or for McKay to win. So I don't think I'm going to go through it because we're already long and I've got other things to get through. I'm just going to leave this here as something for you guys to read if you're interested in that. I'm interested in that, but it's a little bit wonky to get into. Okay, here's Holly Doan, and here's Steve Paikin, I think that's how you say that, and he says, Erin O'Toole wins, but Leslyn Lewis is the huge story that emerges from this leadership race. A black woman never elected, getting almost 1/3 of the second ballot votes is unprecedented in Canadian history. So Leslyn Lewis, so the first person to drop off the ballot was Sloan, second person was Lewis. And I think that if your first pick was Lewis, probably your second pick was Sloan, and maybe your third pick was O'Toole. So when Lewis dropped, O'Toole got her ballots, right? McKay, if he didn't win it in the first ballot, he's not winning it, right? And that's what I said. So I was not surprised necessarily that O'Toole won, but I think it played out pretty well. Not the way I expected. I thought that McKay would win in the first round, and if not in the first round, well, there's nobody that's. If you're voting Sloan for year one, you're not putting McKay for year two, right? So. Yeah, I don't, and even Lewis, you're not putting McKay for year two. I don't think you're just not voting for a two if you're putting, if you would prefer McKay. So anyway, here is Power in Politics. They did their profiles of all of the candidates, so you can have a look at that. Although it's less interesting now that the race is over, right? Vasi says lawyers are being brought in. Yikes! Vasi just mentions on air and. Somebody's tweeting about that, so I was like, ooh, that's not good. Here is Brian Lilly, and he said, Alberta has 34 seats, Saskatchewan and Manitoba 14 each, which means the parties have a combined 62 seats and 6,200 points. Quebec has 78 seats and 7,800 points, but vastly fewer members of the CPC. If Quebec picks a leader at odds with the rest of the country, Wexit will take off. I think Wexit's probably already taken off, but again, I don't know how effective it's going to be. We've had a separatist party in Quebec for a long time, and their federal party is pursuing Quebec interests and only Quebec interests. So and they're in power now, and they have potential balance of power, right? So if the NDP want to play ball and they don't, well, I mean, then the Liberals have a problem potentially. Or no, if the NDP don't want to play ball, then the Liberals have to deal with the Bloc, or can potentially deal with the Bloc. So here is another Steve Paikin quote, and he says, longtime conservative John McTiction, sorry, I got that terribly wrong, or I've got it exactly right somehow. He says, they've had the ballots sitting there waiting since Friday. If they hadn't fallen in love with machine counts, a hand count would have had this done by now. This does brand damage to us. Yeah, it doesn't look great. The last leadership race had the shredding of the ballots after. This one's got the shredding of the ballots, during the count in the counting room. Was broadcast. I mean, maybe Conservative Party should have outsourced the vote count to We Charity, says Mark Critch. I thought that was kind of funny. There's Mark. I tell jokes and act and stuff. He's an actor. So I thought that was kind of funny. Steve Paikin again. This info is admittedly from Erin O'Toole's campaign official, but the official says that Peter McKay campaign is challenging virtually every single outstanding ballot, which is significantly adding to the delay. Well, there you go. And then 3 hours ago, or this morning when I woke up, this was the first headline I saw. It was, you've given me a clear mission, says Erin O'Toole. He wins the Conservative leadership race on the third ballot. Here's the article about that. It says, I'm Erin O'Toole, new Conservative leader named after a race like no other. CBC News, or CTV, News is reporting. Erin O'Toole is the new leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, securing victory on the third ballot after a historic months-long leadership campaign. To the millions of Canadians that are still up, I'm meeting you for the first time. Good morning. I'm Erin O'Toole. You're going to be seeing and hearing a lot from me in the coming weeks and months, but I want you to know from the start that I'm here to fight for you and your family, he said in his first speech as leader in the early morning hours on Monday. O'Toole, an MP from Ontario, defeated Peter McKay, clinching 57% of party support after picking up down-ballot support from Lewis and Derek Sloan supporters. McKay was narrowly leading after the first ballot, but he finished the race in second, while Lewis came in third with a strong showing, and Sloan finished fourth and was the first to drop off the ballot. His down-ballot support was reallocated to the remaining candidates, but was not enough to decide the race. That prompted the third ballot round, where O'Toole picked up considerable support from Lewis supporters. The support was calculated in points, with 100 points allocated to each of the 338 ridings, meaning there were 33,800 points up for grabs. The winner needed to secure at least 16,901 points to win. O'Toole secured 19,271 with strong showings in Alberta and Quebec. Despite many party supporters viewing the race early on as an easy win for McKay, it quickly became tight, blah, blah, blah. In his speech, O'Toole said there is a place in his party, for all Canadians, regardless of race, religion, economic standing, education, or sexual orientation. He also thanked his opponent as well as the tens of thousands of Canadians that voted for him. You've put your faith in me to lead this historic party, and I'm honored and humble. I promise you that I will not let you down, O'Toole said. The announcement of the federal political party's new leader got underway at 12:20 a.m. ET, Eastern Time, Monday, after hours of delays due to thousands of ballots being damaged during the counting process. The big reveal was supposed to start at 6 p.m. on Sunday, but just 30 minutes before the show was set to get rolling, the party announced it was behind schedule in tabulating the winner. Over the more than 4 hours of waiting, the picture of what was happening in the counting room became clear. The envelope opening machines being used were slicing through a percentage of the 174,849 mail-in ballots, resulting in several thousand being damaged, according to the party. How many ballots do you put through while they're being ripped before you stop? Hundreds? Thousands? Several thousand? Who noticed? Why were several thousand? And like if it was a completely automated process, you would expect all of the mail-in ballots to be destroyed. And I mean, maybe they started the automated process and walked away and came back and several thousand, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, who knows how many several thousand had gone through. I don't know how the process works or anything to that effect, but how do you let several thousand ballots? You'd think after the first couple hundred come out like shredded, or ripped or whatever, somebody would be like, can we pause this and let's have a look and see what's happening here? No? Maybe sometimes you don't think like that, but this seems important. This seems like one of those times that you go, guys, this is ripping it. No? Somebody speak up, right? Come on. Okay. This is the NDP holding the balance of power. I've been talking about it a lot. Here's a Toronto Star article about it. I just included it because I've been talking about it. And yeah, the NDP really should drop this government, regardless of what goodies they get, regardless of what the government promises. The government, when asked, did you tell a lie about this? SNC Lavalin, We Charity, everything seems to be, oh, we're not lying. Oh, right, I guess that is true. We did do that. Ha ha ha. Here's the evidence. And then they just carry on like they didn't lie. Why would you believe them, right? Regardless of their intentions are great. Their execution is criminal and crony and unbelievably bad. So why would you believe them? Replace them with somebody who can actually do the job, right? These people are inept and giving their friends big giveaways. And unless you're their friend, Mr. NDP Jagmeet, then you should drop this government because they're not going to be legitimate with you. And it's, my goodness, it's not just me that thinks that. Okay, this is the tweet. Canada's political system is drastically flawed when a party that places fourth in an election can hold the government party ransom. Singh needs to start acting responsible and allow the Trudeau Liberals to be taken down or lose his own seat. Canada is broken. And this is the Toronto Star. The NDP now controls the fate of Justin Trudeau's minority government, which is what I've been talking about anyway. Here's an interesting thing. Okay, we're moving out of the Conservative Leadership Party. We're moving out of the NDP. We're going to come back to, I think we're in... I didn't talk yesterday about Trudeau's press release or question answer at the 3M the way I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to mention that his entire response looks like we're in an election. Looks like we're already into an election. But I've got some other stuff I want to talk about first. So here we go. Plaques set up around Toronto tell the slave-owning pasts of prominent historical families. This is such bunk that it's offensive. And again, I've talked a lot about how the government is offensive and all of this stuff is offensive. Canada was so ahead of the curve that we already had outlawed slavery. Canadians had outlawed slavery before Canada was a country. Slavery did happen in Upper and Lower Canada, but when Canada, as a country that we live in now and inhabit now, which is not Upper Canada and Lower Canada, it's Canada, outlawed slavery before 1867 because because that's the way the world was going, right? And unfortunately, the human trafficking levels that we have now, that is another form of slavery, and it's happening all over the place, and nobody talks about that. Everybody's worried about Black Lives Matter. What is this fist? Why can people, if I just printed up some nice looking things that I decided were historical, could I just go around Toronto and get celebrated by the CBC? I'll tell you, probably not, because the history I put up here would be accurate and not this reimagined, rewritten history to fit the narrative that is current. It is offensive. It is ridiculous. I'm sick of paying taxes for this trash. That's what it is. It's trash. Marxist trash. Look at that fist. Look at that fist. Can you put that up? Like political speech all over the place. Oh, look at how smart and wonderful this post-national state is. Give me a break. Give me a break. Okay, moving into COVID. Ontario reports 115 new COVID-19 cases and no new deaths related to the virus. My response to this was a tweet. My response to this was, what is the criteria to repeal mandatory masks? And why don't we have it? Why isn't it clear? Oh, this government and Doug Ford losing support, but who are you going to vote for? The NDP? Ha ha ha, right? Andrew Horvath? I don't think so. The Liberals? No. Nope, I don't think so. The brand is damaged beyond repair in Ontario, and I think federally as well now. Thank goodness. But who knows? Because I still do think that, well, an election with a new leader, I don't know. I think it's a toss-up, more of a toss-up. I think McKay loses to Trudeau, but O'Toole might win. Maybe a minority, but I don't know. I don't know how it plays out. Anyway, into COVID. Ontario recording another 115 COVID-19 cases on Sunday, a 0.3% increase as the province processed more than 23,300 tests. A total of 29 of the province's 34 public health units are reporting 5 or fewer cases, with 13 of them reporting no new cases. Health Minister Christine Elliott, says ICU admissions and the numbers of vented patients both continue to decline. So at what point? Right? Here's the breakdown of the regions with the most cases today. Peel Region has 32, Toronto 20, Windsor Essex 10, Guelph has 12 cases. I don't believe any are in the hospital. 11 deaths. We've had more deaths by drug overdose this year, right? And unbelievable that we're still on a mandatory mask order and lockdowns and fear porn coming from the education unions and the boards, etc. Here is Quebec. Dominic Appold says, crowd is starting to form in Quebec City to march against mandatory masks for children in schools. Fake news, not having the best time. You can see the videos here. I'm not going to play them. Oh, this one's playing. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people out for protesting against mandatory masks in schools. Good for them. Again, I would love a way to protest that everybody could participate in and could have an impact. I feel like the way these things are reported through the fake news, through the media, they're used by politicians. I said at the beginning, if Andrew Scheer had endorsed Rebel Media, right, instead of using True North and Post Millennial, if he'd said Rebel there, the headline would have been former leader endorses Rebel Media and blah blah blah. They use it and they turn it and they use it to further the propaganda about how bad the movement is, right? And we shouldn't give them ammunition. We should be able to protest in a way that is meaningful, that you can grow your numbers and show people who are in agreement with it, and that in that way move the government. Because if there's a lot of people who agree, then the government will have to comply. But the way things are, the news just twists it, and regardless of how many people agree with mandatory masks or or for no mandatory masks, the government sits by and does nothing, right? Like there still is no criteria for the repeal of mandatory masks. This is in fact what your tax dollars are being used on. This is 21 hours ago, yesterday, wondering how to shop, during COVID-19. Check out this video featuring Carlingwood SCTR. Here's the guy in a suit in a mask. And the music's all, right? Like, come on. Yikes, right? Like, this is the worst kind of propaganda. It's aimed at children, and I mean, like, oh, come on, everybody, let's help each other. And the whole idea is that you're helping each other, but that's not borne out in the data. There's no data that shows masks reduce the spread of respiratory viruses. I'm sorry. There's no data about that. You know what surgeons use masks for? To stop the spread of bacteria from dropping into open wounds, because they cut people open in surgery. So it's not to stop the spread of disease. It's so bacteria don't drop into the wound. And all of the studies and the studies with controls, the peer review studies have the same conclusion. Wearing a mask doesn't reduce the spread of respiratory virus. It just doesn't. Here's something out of Australia, and man, this worries me because Canada's a lot like Australia, UK, right? We're all part of that group that was former British colonies, and this is just so concerning that this is happening there. They have a similar system to us, and wow, right? Here's Melbourne Crypto. He says, if you had told me a year ago that in Australia we would have a nightly 8 p.m. curfew and the army patrolling the streets alongside armed police asking to see your papers, I would never have believed you. And here's the permit you have to carry to leave your house for work. Right? Wild, isn't it? Like this is not good. This is not free, and it's not like there aren't effective treatments for this, right? And yet Australia is behaving as if, and they have much less death than us. I think they have under 500 deaths from COVID-19. So this is a very draconian response. It's very, very concerning. I know I say that a lot. Here's a couple of provincial stories that we're going to focus on before we get back to the electioneering that we're going to talk about. Darshan Maharaja. I think that's how you say that. Shootings in Halifax from May to July. 2019, there were 4. 2020, there were 14. 14 shootings in Halifax. Freed prisoners, COVID-related stress, mental health. This requires a proper study. This is Halifax Today. Sees 14 reported shooting incidents since May. I wonder if that includes the Nova Scotia, like the big mass shooting or not. I'm not sure if it does. If it does, that's a big skew because that's all one day and that's one big event. Not to say that it's incorrect. It's not incorrect, but that's a big increase. And it's not exactly like the Toronto increase in shootings, which is just a lot of people, a flood of guns, gang violence, right? Illegal guns and gang violence. Here's an interesting story. Matt Wolf, and he's a reporter. I think he's a reporter. Executive Director of Issues Management for the Premier of Alberta. He is not a reporter, but he is somebody who's involved in policy. And this is Global News. They are reporters. And he says, this is a quote from the article, he pulled out the needle from his arm and began chasing us across the street saying he was going to kill me. I was absolutely terrified. I had my daughter with me. He had his needle up in the air like he was going to use it. Right? And so, safe old Vancouver. Do you live in BC still? Is this happening regularly there? I saw another short video, my walk through my Vancouver neighborhood, and there were needles everywhere. Like the guy was just walking along with his phone out, and you could see people kind of walking around, and I don't even think he was really going into alleyways or anything to that effect, but there were just needles strewn everywhere. I wouldn't want to walk around with my kids in a place like that. And I mean, this is happening in real time. Like it's not. Is the response to this more drugs? Is the response to this to ignore this? Is the response to this more enforcement, more police? How do you deal with this, right? Or how do you, aren't drugs illegal? Oh, wait, no, they're not. Here's Patty Haydu. Blacklock's reporter says, decriminalizing heroin, cocaine, definitely something worth debating, says Patty Haydu. It's about health. It's about health. Put on the mask. You've got to protect everyone. You've got to protect people, right? Let's make heroin and cocaine legal, right? Forget it. This is basic freedom, right? You should be able to shoot up if you want to and then attack a mother and her daughter with your recently used needle in order to get your next fix. Freedom, right? Just embrace it, right? These are the people who are leading us. Tone deaf, foolish, morons. Okay, speaking of, here's Justin Trudeau. Yesterday, I played this clip, and it's a long clip. And so the question, what was the question? How do you view debt? Basically, how do you view debt? He spins it into, we are going to have your back, Canada. We're gonna take care of you. And maybe some people said that we shouldn't have spent this money, but we're gonna spend this money and take care of you. The whole answer here, and I'm not gonna play it again because it was torturous to listen to the first time around. The whole answer is an electioneering answer. I think that we're in an election with everything but the declaration. I think that with the proroguing of Parliament, I think the NDP are in negotiations to keep the government afloat. I don't think they should. I think they're probably going to, and I think maybe we'll see a January election because of the next scandal, whatever the next scandal is going to be. But we'll see. We'll see what's in Freeland's budget. Is this one? Yeah. Freeland on Thursday couldn't say what would be in her first budget, noting she didn't get an economic crystal ball at her swearing-in ceremony 2 days ago. Yeah. She didn't get, no, nobody gets a crystal ball. You know what, though? I know that she has never run finances for a business, a daycare, or any major state. So she has no experience, none, and we're in a huge financial crisis. So what do? Spend money. It's cheap. Spend money. Just do a budget like you have unlimited money, and we'll cut it as needed. We'll see how it goes on Tuesday. It's unbelievable. Anyway, we're in an election. Trudeau's going to say what he needs to say to either keep the government afloat currently, so he doesn't lose power, or make sure that an election is not called again, so he doesn't lose power. And O'Toole's in the House already. He's already got a seat. So one of his things was he's ready to go on day one. So he'll be in Scheer's old spot the next time the House of Commons comes together during the throne speech, presumably to vote against it. And I guess he'll be in charge of negotiations now with Jagmeet Singh about talking about dropping the government. I think the Bloc Québécois is maybe on board, but after Morneau leaving, maybe they got enough and they're willing to continue to allow Trudeau to enjoy confidence of the House. I don't know, but things will firm up between now and September 23rd. But that's a month away. And the country is in. It's not like everything's fine, right? It's not like things are just running along swimmingly and everybody's doing a great job, right? Like we've got mask mandates, we've got travel bans, yet still people landing in Canada from infected areas. We've got this problematic COVID-19 thing that seems to be we're taking Dr. Tam's advice for, but she seems to be wrong quite a lot. And Patty Haydu seems to be more focused on decriminalizing drugs than dealing with anything to do with COVID-19. Have you heard about hydroxychloroquine? Yeah, I think that's how you say it. I probably said it wrong. Anyway, regardless, it's one of those things that there's a lot that needs doing. There's a lot of governing that needs to be happening in a crisis. And it seems like our government's response is to turn off the government and say, you know what, we'll get to it in a minute, which really underscores how important they are in day-to-day life, right? Like, man, if they just got out of the way, imagine what we could do. Imagine what the country could do, right? Like, and really, if the leadership is this experienced and this, this well-versed in everything, do you really want them hanging around for a long time? I can't imagine, but the makeup of everything at this point in time, I think, it might fall in September. It might. We'll have to see how things shape up. I'm not sure. I can't make a prediction at this point in time. This might be a disaster. Like the budget might be a complete and utter disaster. I don't know if, and the other part of it is, I don't know if there's anybody in the Liberal ranks that would be able to tell them that it was a disaster. Like they would be able to look at it and go, oh, well, you missed this, you missed this, you missed this. This is a basic mistake. This is something that you should know as the finance minister. But I don't know that they have anybody that can do that. I'll be interested to see what the other parties have to say once the budget is released. But man, there's so much that could happen in a month of proroguing and the promises, the extra $37 billion for the expansion of the CURB and that program, despite the fact of the negative impact on small businesses and the ability to attract workers, right? Like there's problems abound, like difficulties and issues that need debate, and if not debate, then action. And none of that's going to happen because of Trudeau's power game, because that's what it boils down to, right? And because we can't get to the bottom of because we can't continue to hold parliamentary sessions, because we can't hold the debates necessary to continue moving laws through and forward and all of that other stuff, because everything's dead on paper now, I don't know where this government thinks it's going to have the confidence of the House. But man, NDP is the weak link. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful